Welcome to Tree Felling Safety First. The techniques in this video will be demonstrated by national champion logger Ryan Rudity of Rudity Logging. In this video, you're going to learn about safety apparel, chainsaw safety, tree information including creating a felling plan, felling techniques, inspection after the tree is down, and limbing. We'll cover a lot. By the time the video is over, you'll have many of the strategic tools you'll need to create a felling plan with safety as the #1 priority. We've got a lot to cover, but before we get started, there are 2 points I need to make. First, Ryan is experienced with tree felling safety techniques and will be able to show you firsthand how to focus on safety every step of the way as you bring down that next tree, big or small. Second, this video does not replace the necessity of hands-on training with professional supervision. Please obtain such instruction before venturing out. With that said, let's get started. When selecting and inspecting your hard hat, look for an interior strap suspension with 4 or 6 points. More points provide better protection. Also remember to check the date stamped into the hard hat and replace the hard hat around that date, even if it appears to be in good shape. Over time, hard hats will deteriorate from exposure to ultraviolet light, which weakens the protective properties of the hard hat. Be sure to protect your ears with earmuffs or plugs. Use the screen on your hard hat to protect your eyes as well as to keep your entire face from being exposed to flying debris, limbs, or other hazards. Safety glasses combined with the screen would be an even safer combination. Chainsaw-proof boots with a steel toe not only protect against a chainsaw injury, but are also an important part of protecting your toes and feet from crushing accidents. Look for the UL-approved symbol to find chainsaw chaps or chainsaw pants that are complete with 5 to 7 layers of Kevlar, designed to stop a saw chain before it makes it to a cutter's leg. The Kevlar material is in strands so that if a saw chain would cut into the chaps, the chain would pull the strands out, wrap them around the drive sprocket of the saw, and then shut it down, immediately stopping the saw. Some cutters prefer pants and others chaps, but whatever the preference, the final result should be to protect your legs. Zippered pockets are convenient to keep wood chips from building up during the course of a day. Be sure you don't have flapping shirt sleeves, dangling shirt tails, or loose boot laces that might get entangled while you're working. Protective leather gloves are important to keep your hands from getting scratched and bruised. Always carry a first aid kit when you're working in the woods. Why include a mirror in the kit? To help with locating and removing a foreign object that may find its way into your eye. Make sure that you check the 5 safety features on your chainsaw. Chain brake. First, check the chain brake. This protects the hand from being cut if it were to slip off the handlebar. The chain brake will stop the chain immediately when engaged. Second, check the throttle lock. This safety feature prevents the trigger from being pulled if the lock isn't pressed in. Third, the chain catch is located underneath the bar, and its function is to shorten the saw chain if it comes off the bar or just breaks. Without it, the chain could fly backwards and cut the operator's hand or elbow. The spark arrestor is there to prevent the saw from having sparks come out and possibly start a fire in the woods, especially during dry conditions. Make sure you do a visual inspection of the saw for cracks, loose bolts, missing screws, and etc. This will help to ensure that you don't get interrupted and have to stop working before you're ready. When gripping the saw, it's very important to have your thumbs in the correct position. Be sure that your thumbs are wrapped around both the back handle and top handles of the saw. Here, Ryan is demonstrating an incorrect grip. Here, he demonstrates the correct grip. Five important steps to remember when creating a tree felling plan include hazards, lean, escape route, hinge thickness and length, and a cutting plan. Number 1, hazards. Look up and check for hazards up in the tree, such as dead limbs, hanging limbs, broken limbs, or other trees leaning against it. Number 2, the lean. Check the front, back, and side lean of the tree. This will provide important information about the most likely direction that gravity will pull the tree as it falls, and how you'll have to adjust your felling plan to compensate. Remember to always finish on the good side of the tree when completing the cut. Number 3. Escape route. Put your eyes on the path. Plan an escape route for when the tree begins to fall. Plan this route at a 45-degree angle from the felling direction. If necessary, clear away obstacles that might trip you up. Number 4. Hinge thickness and length. A good rule of thumb is to plan the hinge thickness to be no more than 10% diameter at breast height and the hinge length to be at least 90% diameter at breast height. This ensures your hinge won't cause the tree to split and the hinge length is still adequate to control the tree. Number 5. Cutting plan. Remember, never start without a cutting plan, but always be willing to change it. The chain brake should be set and hearing protection should be in place whenever starting a chainsaw. The proper technique for starting a chainsaw is to either stand with the chain brake set and the handle braced against your thigh as you pull, or to stand with the chain brake set and your foot stabilizing the handle and then pull. When using a chainsaw, remember that there are forces that act on areas of the chainsaw bar, in particular, the kicking corner and the attacking corner. 4 forces that act on the bar include pull, push, kick, and attack. The bottom area pulls the bar into the wood. The top area pushes the bar out, away from the wood. The kicking corner is the risky part. Kickback occurs when boring with the kicking corner. It kicks the saw away from the wood. And finally, the attacking corner on the lower tip of the bar. It's used to start your plunge cut. What just happened here? Ryan demonstrated an incorrect cutting method that resulted in kickback. Use the black line located on the saw body, perpendicular to the saw bar, to line up the saw for your felling plan direction. This line acts as a sight for the saw to aid in the direction and location of the tree being felled. For best results, the notch or face cut should be at least a 70-degree angle, allowing the tree to fall in a more controlled manner. Otherwise, hinge fiber may sever too soon, causing you to lose control of the tree. There should be no bypass of the 2 cuts by more than 3/8 of an inch. However, if one of the cuts is too deep and a bypass happens, the cutter can still correct the bypass by taking another slice from the notch. Here, Ryan is demonstrating a bypass and the correction technique. When cutting a larger tree where the saw bar won't reach from one side to the other, compensate by boring through the middle. Next, use the saw bar to measure in order to see how far to push the bar in. The chainsaw's chain brake should be set when taking more than 2 steps around the tree. Use a wedge to support the tree while felling. Make sure to put your helmet's face screen down before hitting a wedge. This should be part of your felling plan. Be sure to check wedges for stress fractures or weakened areas, and get rid of a wedge where such signs are present. When you've made the final cut that releases the tree, and you've made the split-second determination that it is indeed falling in your felling plan direction, quickly and carefully move at least 10 feet away from the tree along the 45-degree angle escape route that you previously established in your felling plan. Turn and watch the tree as it descends. A properly executed directional felling plan is designed to allow the hinge to control the fall, even slow it slightly, to give the cutter more time to escape. Always be aware of additional overhead hazards that may be created as the tree is falling. For instance, other trees or limbs that the falling tree might strike. After felling, check for overhead hazards such as hanging limbs. Check for ground hazards such as spring poles, especially if the tree slid more than 3 feet from the stump, because then there is a greater risk of back pressure on the limbs, which creates a back spring hazard. Check to see if the tree slid to the left or to the right of the stump, or if it twisted as it fell. This creates greater risk for side pressure. Check to see if the butt of the tree is on the ground or above it. If it's above, there is a risk of the tree falling the rest of the way to the ground and possibly rolling as you are working on limbing the tree. Once the tree is on the ground, it's important to review the stump and, if necessary, plan for adjustments on the next cutting. Remember the rule of thumb that the hinge on the stump should be no more than 10% diameter at breast height. Ryan shows us that in this particular case, his cuts met the 2-inch width criteria, hinge thickness no more than 10% diameter at breast height, and his cuts met the 24-inch length criteria, hinge length at least 90% diameter at breast height. Notice the fiber pull on the stump. If the pull is more than 3 inches, then the hinge is too thick. The back cut compared to the notch should be either level or below the front cut. This helps to ensure that the hinge fibers are at least what you expect, since wood fiber gets thicker further down the tree. After checking again for overhead hazards and ground hazards, it's time to cut the branches off of the felled tree. And remember, when limbing, hold the saw close to your body to help avoid back injury. There are 4 common limbing techniques. First, the axle cut. If a limb is potentially under pressure, use the axle cut to identify where the pressure is before releasing it completely. Begin the cut where you believe the pressure is the greatest and work around the perimeter of the limb, leaving a sufficient amount of fiber still holding within the center of the limb. Watch the saw kerf open or close and verify where the pressure is. Then, finish your cut on the limb away from the pressure or pinch point. Bottom line is, make sure you identify where the pressure is before completing your cut. Second, limb lock. This is an interior cut that you would use if the limb has back pressure on it. Be sure not to cut too far where the saw gets pinched. This cut severs the fiber on a cross section. Third, top lock. This is a combination of 2 offsetting cuts. It depends upon the pressure on the limb as to whether you start at the top or the bottom. Fourth, tongue and groove. This is a cut to use on steep ground where there is a high risk of the log rolling if cut completely free. Then a skidder can be used to pull the log, sever the fiber, and control the roll. We hope you've enjoyed and learned from tree felling safety first. Remember to supplement the instruction in this video with hands-on training under professional supervision. Cutting timber is always going to be dangerous, but the more supervised, hands-on training you can obtain, the more likely that you'll safely walk away from a satisfying day of working in the woods.